When we launched our first accelerator here, we decided to do this in London. We decided to do this in London because London had this unique combination of a startup ecosystem, industry that was interested in innovation. We had a collaborative regulator, and we had an investment environment that was encouraging early-stage investments with SEIS and EIS. The session we're about to have is all about FinTech going global. So what does it take for startups who decided to set up a business here because of this beautiful mix of components that makes it easy for startups to set up foot here. Then they start growing and they start globalizing. And to do this, I would like to invite Veronica Glab from Innovate Finance, who's the head of engagements, who will lead you to a wonderful panel. Veronica, the stage is yours.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Going Global. The stage being mine, I'm going to take that very seriously. I'm Veronica Glab. I'm head of engagement at Innovate Finance, which means that I head up our capital and investment program, connecting startups to the venture community, and I lead on our investment landscape report. So today's topic of going global and mapping the FinTech landscape is one that is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm joined by two excellent guests to discuss that. So this morning's conversation has come about in a really fortuitous way as we come together to discuss two independent initiatives to map the UK FinTech ecosystem. The Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance has recently launched an interactive tool that categorizes and maps UK FinTechs by geography, vertical, and their expansion plans. Yesterday, DBT have announced their initiative to launch the FinTech Census. These initiatives have been launched in collaboration with Innovate Finance and with our IFG, our International FinTech Group. And they're truly groundbreaking because it makes the UK the first country to create these data-rich maps of its FinTech landscape. The CCAF map and the DBT census just go to show how much appetite there is for more information on the state of FinTech and on the UK itself. It's a further indication of the sector's maturation, and we're pretty excited about that. So, now that we have set the scene, I'd like our guests to join me on stage and introduce themselves. All right, Jack, why don't we start with you?
Yes, thank you very much for having us today. So I am Jack Jones. I am the co-head of FinTech at the Department of Business and Trade. What does my job entail? It's twofold. It's how do you promote UK FinTechs overseas, and how do you promote the UK to overseas FinTechs?
And Bryan?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Bryan Zhang. I'm a co-founder and the executive director of the Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance at the University of Cambridge Judge Business School. So we collect empirical data both from innovators and regulators to inform strategic market development, sustainable industry growth, and evidence-based regulation and policy making. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. So, Bryan, rather than directing the first question to you and to tell us about CCAF, I'm going to let you show us.
Thank you, with pleasure. So it is my great pleasure to launch a brand new, interactive, open access digital tool that maps the global footprint of UK FinTechs. This initiative is in collaboration with Innovate Finance, the UK Department of Business and Trade, the City of London Corporation, and the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. So why are we launching an indicative and interactive digital tool? Well, because we believe FinTechs and other forms of digital financial services are well positioned to expand overseas and to go global. That means we also need empirical data to help us understand the current landscape of UK FinTech industry's overseas connectivity and expansion, and more importantly, to help us collectively create an enabling environment and necessary conditions for the UK FinTechs to go global. Now, this tool, in the simplest term, helps everyone to identify which UK FinTechs has expanded into which overseas market and offering what kind of digital financial services or products in which jurisdiction. Now, this is a collaboration from start in terms of conceptualization to design and development, all done in under 2 months. I think this is a great, true testament of the spirit of the UK FinTech community and the power of collaboration. It is thanks to Innovate Finance, especially Peter, Paul, and Janine, but also the CCF leads, Dana, and Anton, but all the FinTech associations, FinTech North, FinTech South, FinTech Alliance, Lab 39, that provided support to help us disseminate that survey. So we're able to compile a fantastic database with 558 UK FinTechs, of which 152 are self-reported through the survey, and then we open source data for another 406 UK FinTechs. Our definition for UK-based FinTech is board-based, that including the company that have the UK as the first country of incorporation, but also with the UK as a company's global regional headquarters or have a substantial activities in the UK. Now, this is a landing page. So basically, you can toggle easily by switching between an operational view and a serviced view. And the data at the top shows you that actually 209 UK-based FinTechs have expanded operationally into overseas market. And a total of 318 UK FinTechs are currently offering products or services in 195 countries. This is extremely encouraging, but also we have to understand there are 349 UK FinTechs are not expanding overseas, and there's a 240 are not currently offering services or products in overseas market. So that's the opportunity. Now, in terms of the popular regions for expansion, the top 3 are Europe, North America, and Asia Pac. And in terms of popular destinations, the countries for them to expand operationally, the top 3 are US, Singapore, Australia, followed by Spain, France, UAE, Germany. It's great to see Netherlands and Ireland, but also India there. In terms of the countries, they have been providing services or products. As you can see, besides the US, the top 9 of the top 10 countries are all European countries. Now, let's use this example of one country. Shall we see Singapore? So we click, and we go to East Asia and Pacific, and we click Singapore. I'll click Apply. And this tool will show that the 40 active UK FinTech have expanded into Singapore. And there's a further 85 UK FinTechs are providing services to Singapore. Now, one thing we want to know, out of the 40 UK FinTech expanded into Singapore, how many of them are actually also offering enter into the market in the US? And this tool will tell you that actually 32 out of the 40 FinTechs went to Singapore also went to US. Now, if we click Singapore, and we could scroll down the list of the FinTech companies, click a company, let's say Comply Advantage, which is a great UK FinTech success story, a big RegTech company. You can see it's currently operating in 5 countries, but providing services and products to over 193 countries. That's what the tool can do to illustrate data and inform market development. Now, you can also navigate this tool by using the drop-down menu to select particular market segments. There are 14 primary market segments. Let's say we collect payment services, right? And then you will see, out of these companies who are engaged in payment services, there are 107 UK FinTechs are currently operating in 70 countries. Now, if you toggle, now you will see those 107 UK payment services companies actually are offering products or services in over 194 countries. Now, you can also search directly both the name of the company or the country by using this very intuitive navigation bar, right? And if you click on WISE, you will see all the countries WISE is currently operating. This overlap the color with both green and blue indicates this company both have operational base, but are also currently offering products or services. Now, if we pick any other country, for example, UAE and India, it will provide those data at your fingertip. Now, this tool is live now, which you can access by tapping through ccf.io/atlas/UK map. Now, this is a tool is in its beta version, alpha version, and the tool is not a complete database. Therefore, if you FinTech are currently not in this database, do reach out to me. If you spot any mistakes, there's a contribution page for you to send us data. Thank you very much indeed.
Bryan, thank you so much. I think you're helping me to plan all my future work trips. But Jack, I want to bring you back into the conversation and provide a little bit of context onto how data is used by government and why the FinTech census is also so important.
No, it's spot on, and I think it's one of those serendipitous things when you engage with the FinTech community, which I believe is the role of our department and what we should be doing. When we found out that this survey was happening in the work of CCAF, it provided a really good as-is as to what is the current state of UK FinTech. However, our role as a Department for Business and Trade, we want to know the next steps. What's the 2B model? The ex-consultant in me coming out there, but what is the 2B model of where our FinTechs want to go? So what is the purpose of a census? So when a government runs a census every 10 years, the idea is you need to know about local demographics, what's the population size, to kind of help you plan, well, I need 20 more primary school places in Peterborough, or I need more GPs in this particular area. And that's what we're hoping to do with this census. So the FinTech census asks 3 very basic questions. It's which markets are you interested in expanding into? What are the barriers that you're facing to those expansion? And more importantly, what support do you need to allow us to plan over the next 12, 18 months effectively to actually support our UK FinTechs scale and expand overseas? In an ideal world, when the census closes in 5 weeks' time, we're going to have a list of 20 RegTech companies based in Cardiff that want to expand to Qatar, and they're not expanding to Qatar because there's a lack of information about the local regulatory regime. That is what we want to be able to hand over to our colleagues overseas at Post to share with Innovate Finance, City of London, and the wider community to make sure we are providing the right support. So yes, the census is now live. Dotted around the room, there are some QR codes for UK FinTechs to scan and sign up. We've done multiple trial runs, takes no more than 5 minutes to do so, and it provides us with a wealth of information. And to ensure we're keeping it up to date, surveys are only as good as the information provided to them. Right. We're going to be doing this once a year. So the idea is it provides us an ongoing kind of pulse point of the UK FinTech sector and where we should be focusing our efforts in government.
Excellent. And Bryan, what specific challenges do you hope to solve with this tool with Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance?
So we have a challenge in terms of lack of data. And the lack of data, it creates lack of visibility, right? Lack of visibility for FinTech founders, CEOs, and management team to design, develop, and execute an international strategy. Lack of visibility for investors, both at home and abroad, to identify FinTech investing opportunities. Lack of visibility for FinTech talents who want to be involved or contribute to a FinTech company. But most importantly, lack of visibility, I think, for policymakers and regulators and government, right, to design fit for purpose and targeted policy and support to help those FinTech companies to go global. So those are the reasons why we're creating this tool with the support of a DPT and other agencies.
Excellent. So we figured out what challenges we're aiming to solve, and now let's think about how to put that into action. So Jack, how does the FinTech census work in harmony with Innovate Finance, with the International FinTech Group, DBT international programs, or other government initiatives?
Yeah, and I think it's to Bryan's point on having data-led initiatives. So, for example, last year we ran a mission to Singapore during Singapore FinTech Festival, and we did that based on intel we'd received from our colleagues overseas, which was a big focus on green finance and FinTech for good. So we targeted our mission specifically for those UK companies, and we took 8 companies out. What I want to be doing is much more of that. At the moment, we talk to the industry, we talk to the ecosystem, but we want to be data-led in that decision. So if there's a result that comes up that says, actually, do you know what? We've got 45 fintechs based in Scotland who want greater access to the US market, and here are the states they want to go to, I want us to be able to provide support to that. The ultimate aim is every scale and every size of fintech company, I want there to be some route into our department services in order to say, whether you're a scale up, whether you are looking to list, do we have a support offer available to you? And that's hopefully what this is going to give us.
Great. And let's consider that we have a number of fintechs in the room with us this morning. How do fintechs use this data to assess which markets, whether it's the USA, Singapore, UAE, that they should scale to first? And this question I'd like for both of you to comment on, but Jack, I'll start with you.
So I think for us, it's more us being the customer of the data. It's we need those insights from the sector to make sure we are tailoring support adequately. I think the information on Bryan's open source, there's a whole load of different implications in terms of that open access.
Exactly. I think for fintech founders and the CEOs, right, is for them to use this database to design their international strategy, and it's for them to facilitate conversations with funders and investors, right, to help them expand into those markets. It's about facilitation of a dialogues, right, and engagement with the government, both at home, but also with overseas governments and regulators, right, to identify some of those barriers and challenges that are currently preventing them getting into those markets.
Excellent. And we've got time for one more quick question. So let's say that the both of you had a crystal ball, and if you could look into the future with these tools that we do have available, where do you see the UK FinTech ecosystem, and how do you see that looking in the next 5 years?
I think for me, from a policy government perspective, it's making sure that we can adequately match supply and demand. So how we work as a department, we have colleagues overseas at 110 different countries. We want them to be providing us the demand for our UK FinTechs, and our UK FinTechs providing us that supply of products and services. So in 5 years' time, people will know they can come to us, and there's a customer at the end of the line for them.
Great. Bryan?
Yeah, I think the future of fintech in UK is extremely optimistic, but we need to ensure that over the course of the next five years, we build the foundation, we build the fit-for-purpose, innovative, and future-proof digital market and regulatory infrastructure. So by digital market infrastructure, things like new payments architecture, open banking, open finance infrastructure, smart data, digital ID, CBDC. But for digital regulatory infrastructure, example of that was what announced by FCA yesterday of a permanent digital sandbox, but also machine-readable, machine-executable regulation and supervisory technology, or subtech. If we have those elements of foundation in place, then I believe the future of the UK FinTech is extremely bright.
All right. Well, what a positive note to end us on. And on that note, we are running a little bit short on time. So to the audience in the room, I think Jack and Bryan have both left us with a little bit of homework to contribute to both of these initiatives. But I want to thank you both for joining me on stage this morning. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bring me up, bring me down, play it sweet, make me move like a freak. Mr. Saxo beat makes me this, brings me up,
Thank you, Veronica, Jack, and Bryan. If you don't know about the work that CCAF is doing beyond this, check the website. It's amazing, and it's wonderful to see this new tool emerging. So we're shifting the lens a little bit. We're going from big picture to very narrow focus, because now we're going to talk about payments, but not about payments in general. I mean, we've talked about this a lot over the years. We're giving it a specific twist because we're looking at the importance of payments and the role of payments in the context of financial inclusion, but also increasingly sustainability. And in order to do this, I would like to invite the panel that is led by Rashi Pandey, who's head of relationships and growth at Innovate Finance. Rashi, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here. And I do have to give a shout out to our production team. They made me feel like a rock star right now. But thank you so much for joining the second day of IFGS and us at the Delivery Hall. I am Rashi Pandey. I'm head of membership and growth at Innovate Finance. And I have a stellar panel today because we will be discussing how payments innovation can really drive innovation, sustainability, and inclusion within the sector. It's a cause that is very, very important to us at Innovate Finance. And today I have guests. I have Dan, who is the CEO and co-founder at EarthChain. I have Duncan, who's the founder and CEO at One Banks. And I also have Emilian, who's the founder and CTO at Planky. I love when CTOs join us on stage because that is very, very rare. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. So just to set the scene and the picture a little, the payments landscape has transformed so much over the last decade. It has, affected every part of our lives. And innovation with there, has really, really been substantial and monumental in our everyday lives. So what do you three think are the most exciting, emerging, and sustainable technologies that are driving this change and also delivering positive outcomes into, all our everyday lives? So Dan, I see you smiling, so I'll go to you first.
I always smile when I'm with you, Rashi. For me, really, it's the power of payments data to act as a proxy for carbon emissions. I think this is really exciting. It's something that we do at EarthChain, and it's something that a number of other companies in the same space are doing as well. You can look at a payment, it's categorized, you know who the merchant is, you know how much is being spent, and there's data that enables you to calculate a carbon footprint based on that, which is a much easier way than self-reporting for a consumer.
Amazing. Emilian?
Yes, so basically, I want to start from the regulation point of view, that we have the very good regulation, and on top of open banking regulation, we can build technology. As you said, for the technical people, it's quite easy to build the technology. But if we look at the payments and what is happening right now, we have to think about the three aspects. So the first thing is building the trust of the customers. Second is the transparency, and the third is education. So a lot of companies, they need to extend all the services to address all these things, yes, to create something very innovative.
Yeah, transparency is definitely key. Duncan?
So the technology for me that's changing the landscape the most is open banking. It's something that obviously One Banks is very close to, and I'll come on to talk about that in a wee bit more detail. But to me, open banking is game-changing. It enables third parties. It's a game changer for the banks as well. It helps the banks access places that they can't otherwise reach, enable third parties to help them help their customers, in effect. So whether it's push payments, accessing push payments in areas that they can't be there themselves, with branches continuing to close. I mean, people used to always go to a bank branch to do their payments, to do their banking. Now you can use open banking and actually leverage a third party to be at that single location. But open banking to me is more than just payments. It's more than just data as well. A large part of it is actually around identity and the fact that it encourages third parties to build that relationship with the customer. And what that means is, especially with things that maybe you don't think of as much, like with cash, for example, the only way in which people access cash at the moment is using a chip and PIN. That's the only current valid form of identity, in effect. Whereas with open banking and encouraging distributed identity, federated identity, for example, leveraging, for example, like NatWest, for example, use Get Cash using the mobile channel. Open banking encourages that, and it enables lots of different forms of authentication. So some new technologies that's emerging is QR code authentication, biometric authentication, and all those more modern, it reduces fraud, it reduces everything. It's better ways of authenticating customers at point of transaction I'm really excited about. So I know it's not really a technology, but it's been really transformational, right? Open banking, and actually it's a great pivot to my second question, actually, because with the emergence of open banking, there have been so many new players. There have been a lot of non-traditional financial institutions and services as well who have entered the payments market, which keeps data really at the forefront, And Dan, I'm looking at you because I know you work very, very, closely with data. So how has data really driven the payments value chain in a sustainable way?
I think one thing to note is that 99% of British businesses are what you would call SMEs.
Yeah.
And that 99%, those SMEs, they're responsible for 50% of our carbon emissions, which is frightening. And only 3% of them have actually reported their emissions and set up a strategy to do something about them, which means there's obviously some resistance. It's a difficult thing for small businesses to actually do. You have to engage consultants and think about very difficult questions about your footprint. But there are other ways to do this. You know, you can use your payments data as a proxy to estimate this. So you can connect your accounting system to a system like EarthChain or one of other companies available out there, which can then go through the payments data and give you an estimate of your scope 1, scope 2,
Yeah.
greenhouse gas nerd jargon for you, but your emissions, basically. And that's really made possible through technologies such as open banking for an outcome which is perhaps what open banking wasn't designed for in the first place, but it can do so much more if you're thinking about it creatively and bringing that data into one venue where it can be analyzed for a variety of different reasons.
And can I just quickly ask you to explain what you're doing at EarthChain to deliver this?
Yeah, absolutely. So EarthChain is a sustainability as a service platform, and it has APIs which can be integrated by financial institutions, by FinTechs, by payment service providers, and you can feed our API with transactional data, and it's not the whole transaction. We don't care about personally identifying information or anything like that. And we can return a report which gives you the impact of that spend in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. Coupled with that, we can also deliver advice for a consumer or for a business, for example, about what they can do to change their habits and reduce their emissions as well, all based off analyzing that data. And the second thing that we do is we enable the financing of certified climate projects, working in partnership with an NGO called the Gold Standard Foundation. We are the only company in the world who's permitted to tokenize, to digitize a gold standard carbon credit. This represents a reduction of CO2 based on a certified methodology. And we bundle that in with payments. So you've probably all seen initiatives like where you buy a pair of shoes and then the retailer says, we'll plant a tree. And yeah, I give that a very soft golf clap. I think it's nice, it's a nice sentiment, but it feels a little bit greenwashy. The reason is that they can't prove that that tree was planted, where it was planted. Did it burn in a forest fire? Was it eaten by a horse or a deer? You know, they just don't know. Working with a foundation like Gold Standard enables us to make sure we're dealing with certified, monitored, and verified projects. So it's a lot more robust.
But that's amazing because it's a topic of conversation that comes up in my everyday job, you know, when I'm talking with fintechs and financial services alike. And to you, Emilian, what do you think is the responsibility, to what extent is fintech's responsibility to be delivering inclusivity and sustainability and just opening access to everybody in so many different places?
Yes, so as I mentioned in the beginning, yes, so open banking gave us the tool to build a great technology, and I really believe that this is the first time when we can speak about the financial inclusion.
Yeah.
But according to our research that we are doing at Planki, more than 70% of the customers still don't trust this technology. So businesses are willing to share the data, where customers are more willing to pay via this technology, pay by bank. But still, we have these three issues about the transparency, education, and trust. So basically, the concerns of the customers are around what is happening with the data, with whom this data is shared, and for what purpose. Of course, open banking regulation is giving the guidance to the technology companies how exactly solve all these issues, but is still not happening. Yes, so I think, and we see that it is getting much better every year. Yes, so currently in the UK, more than 7 million people use open banking and around 800,000 businesses. So this technology is coming. But what FinTech must do is to focus on this education aspect, yes, that how this technology is really helping for financial inclusion. Also, I can just mention, because we are working with credit unions and also with buy now, pay later companies, so we can see exactly how that technology, the analytical part, but also the payment itself is doing financial inclusion.
Definitely. The fact that you said payments is really driving financial inclusion is really key, right? At the end of the day. And you know, coming back to you, Duncan, like how do you think these new payment technologies are really driving financial inclusion? And if you can share, you know, some use cases, you know, do some name drops, that would be great.
Okay, well, nice and easy. I'll start with One Banks. So One Banks was started because of open banking, because of the fact that open banking enables all banks to be present in one single location, although that's always been thought of as a digital-only channel, which it is. And actually, we're talking about financial inclusion here. One of the reasons One Banks was set up is because actually, open banking is not that inclusive. Bit awkward saying that on this panel, maybe. But it can go a lot further, is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, the reason One Banks and what One Banks is all banks, one single location. And we try to bring open banking to life to try and engage people who wouldn't otherwise be engaged with open banking. So one of the prerequisites for open banking at the moment, maybe not in the future, is you need to have online banking to use open banking. So my granny, for example, and a large part of what we do is that we always need to consider the granny test. Would your granny use it? Well, in the first instance, maybe not. But if you've got someone in the community helping my granny get onto online banking, use the use case of open banking, well, then maybe. So I do think that using these technologies, using open banking, but then channeling it into everyday use cases, and cash is a great example. So in the UK, there's a massive problem with access to cash. There's still 7 million people who rely on cash on a day-to-day basis. And there's a huge opportunity for open banking and these modern technologies to be leveraged to not only help people get access to everyday banking and access to cash, but also help those individuals move digital at the same time. And what I referred to earlier in terms of open banking with distributed identity, federated identity, changing the way in which people interact with the bank, whether it's using biometrics, QR codes, all of that is helping people move digital, helping people become more accustomed to modern technology, and doing it in a way which is solving real-life, tangible problems, but also educating people about the benefits of open banking. So yeah, that's how I think open banking
is helping.
Help drive.
You know, talking about the granny test, I have to give a shout out to my lovely grandfather, because I do think when you make things very accessible, very easy to use, and very open and inclusive, and you know, people like hopefully the younger generation who will not lose their patience while teaching your grandparents how to use it. My granddad actually uses his iPad and does a lot of his banking there, and he's 85. So I think there are a lot of use cases there and how we can deliver this going forward, you know, at the end of the day. But, you know, just a little more futuristic look. How do you guys think payments is going to transform the industry in the next 3 to 5 years? How is it going to look like? And if there was one key prediction that you had to make, what would it be in payments? Dan, I'm looking at you again.
I think payments are going to become more and more embedded rather than turning to a specific venue for making the payment where you're taken out of context in what you're paying. I feel like they're going to become a lot more embedded. And when I look to the future, I look to the future optimistically because in my mind, the way I think, because I'm very tuned into climate issues, I see the future as a bit of a ticking clock. It's like one of those sand timers, and the sand is running out, and we've got to achieve certain things. And I think alongside embedding payments into everyday contexts, we can embed sustainability into everyday contexts as well by integrating technologies such as the ones that we provide at EarthChain. So my vision, my dream, let's say, for 2025 is that every time you pay for something, you are funding some kind of permanent, good quality climate action at a micro scale. But the ubiquity and the reach of payments means that actually, when you add that all up, it's an enormous contribution. The IPCC, the International Governmental Panel on Climate Change, released a report a few weeks ago, and they said that one of the biggest barriers at the minute to the transition to a greener economy is lack of finance. So they believe accelerating finance can help accelerate the transition to net zero. And payments is the perfect venue to do that. We can do it.
I love that. Emilian?
Yes, so I think that in 1, 2, 3 years ahead, yes, more customers will see the value of pay-by-bank technology, yes, and more people will understand that sharing financial data with the businesses is working for them. So I really think that this pay-by-bank technology will become extremely popular, yes, and people will be resigning from paying by card and debit cards.
Very interesting. Duncan?
And for me, the future of payments Oh, that's a good question. I think open banking will continue to gain traction. Obviously, yesterday with the announcement of the next steps for open banking, I think variable recurring payments will unlock a huge number of use cases, ultimately driving more accessibility, more inclusion. And I do hope that over time, card-based payments, card-based payments sort of, and physical payments moves towards digital, and digital payments moves towards physical, because as we continue to develop innovation, it's important that we don't leave anybody behind, and there are in-person touch points, and we do bridge that gap between physical and digital. So I do think, that's my wish, is that those worlds, even within the banks, sort of collide, and we can use digital technologies as a conduit to help people move digital in the future.
So moving digital, embedded finance, open banking, going cashless completely. I was going to say, all of you are actually transforming the industry, and all of you here as well, right? That's why we are here and having this conversation. But before I let you go, as founders of FinTechs, if you had to give one key piece of advice to your fellow colleagues within the industry, and I know we spoke in the speaker green room, I'm not going to say what you guys told me then, but what would it be if you had to leave everybody with one thought from a founder's perspective? Emilian?
Yes, so I can give just one advice to people who wants to build something that matters. Yes, so especially me, I really wanted to build something with has social impact. Yes, so and this help you to build this product for many years. Yes,
and keeps you going every day, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Dan?
I'm going to completely subvert the question and not answer the question that Rashi asked me. I'm going to give you something that you can do today, right now, after this talk, okay? Between the talks, you'll see a huge green QR code flash past. It's a travel survey that IFGS asked us to produce for delegates here at the event. And all we need to know, anonymously, is how you got here. Did you take a train? Did you fly? Did you drive a car? Did you walk? It will help us to plan IFGS 2024 and make it more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay patient. I think anything that's good takes a long time, and obviously doing things that have a social good, financial inclusion, sustainability, it keeps you passionate, it keeps you going for a long time, and yeah, good things don't come easy, so it's the patience in startups that's required.
Yeah, patience, resilience, social impact, and I think there's a lot more FinTech can do and is already doing anyway. So thank you so much to our gracious speakers and to all of you. Please do enjoy the rest of the sessions. And if you need any, to talk about payments, innovation, you know where to find them. Can we contact you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely, yeah. Use connect, not follow. Follow us to keep the recruiters away.
There you go. And feel free to reach out to the Innovate Finance team as well if there is anything we can help you with. But perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.